Throwaway account. Because people know my main. I, 31M, was married to my now ex-wife, Sarah, 29F, for 5 solid years. If you had asked me 6 years ago where I saw my life heading, I would have told you without a single second of hesitation that I was looking at forever. I thought we had the kind of marriage people actually envied. The kind where you don't need to double-check anything, where you sleep soundly at night because you genuinely believe the person lying next to you is your rock. I was working 40 to 50 hours a week as a mid-level manager at a regional logistics and supply chain firm, busting my ass so she could finish her master's degree without taking on crippling student debt. We had a comfortable suburban home, a dog, a modest savings account, and we were actively talking about starting a family. I was ready for the next chapter. I had even bought a baby crib on sale and kept it stored in its box in the garage, waiting for the day we'd finally assemble it together. Then, about 8 months before the floor dropped out from under my life, the air in our house changed. It didn't happen like a lightning strike. It was a slow, agonizing burn. Sarah became hyper-protective of her phone. The screen was perpetually face down on the kitchen counter. Whenever a notification buzzed, she'd snatch it up like a hawk swooping in on prey. Then came the late-night study sessions. 3, sometimes 4 nights a week, she'd text me at 6 p.m. saying her study group at the library was running long and that she'd grab a bite to eat with them. When I brought it up, gently at first, just asking why her routine had suddenly shifted so radically, she turned it on me instantly. She told me I was becoming possessive, insecure, and controlling. She said the pressure of her final semester was already suffocating her, and having a husband who didn't trust her hard work was pushing her over the edge. I ended up apologizing. I actually bought her flowers the next day because she made me feel like the villain in my own home. Everything came crashing down on a rainy Thursday afternoon. I was going through our physical mail and organizing tax documents in the home office. In the middle of a stack of bank updates and junk mail was an envelope addressed to Sarah from a boutique hotel in downtown Chicago, a place 2 hours away from where her university was supposed to be. Inside was a forgotten paper receipt detailing a 3-night weekend stay. At the bottom of the bill, under the room service charges and parking fees, was the credit card billing info, paid in full via a corporate expense account belonging to my direct superior, the vice president of regional operations at my firm, a 45-year-old married man named Richard. My hands trembled so violently I couldn't read the print properly. I sat at my desk for an hour staring at that piece of paper. The pieces of the puzzle slammed together with sickening speed. The late nights, the sudden raises in her allowance, the way Richard had casually asked me about my weekend plans during our Monday morning staff meetings. When Sarah came home that evening, I laid the receipt on the dining room table without saying a word. What followed was 4 hours of pure, unadulterated gaslighting. First, she claimed it was a system error. Then she said she was helping a friend reserve a room. Then she claimed Richard had just stepped in as a mentor to help her secure a post-grad corporate role and paid for a networking seminar. Every lie was more absurd than the last. It wasn't until I picked up my keys and told her I was driving directly to Richard's house to show his wife the statement that she finally broke down. Sobbing, hysterical, and desperate, she admitted it. She'd been sleeping with my boss for over 6 months. It started at a company holiday mixer and escalated into afternoon meets at luxury hotels and weekend getaways while I was working overtime shifts to cover our mortgage. I didn't yell. I didn't smash anything. I walked upstairs, packed 2 duffel bags with my clothes, moved into an extended stay motel that very weekend, and filed for divorce the following Monday. My entire world was atomized, but my pride wouldn't let me sit in that house for another minute. About 6 weeks after the divorce papers were served, and I was living in a small, sparse 1-bedroom apartment, my phone rang. It was Sarah. She was crying so hard she could barely breathe. She told me she was pregnant. "It's yours, Mark. I swear to God on my life it's yours," she sobbed into the receiver. "I know I messed up. I know I ruined us, but this is our baby. We can fix this. We can be a family." Within 24 hours, my phone became a war zone. Sarah hadn't kept it to herself. She had immediately run to her parents and my family. My mother called me in tears, telling me that regardless of what Sarah had done, a child changes everything.
My former mother-in-law sent me long, guilt-tripping text messages about stepping up, being a man, and not abandoning my flesh and blood over a marital rough patch. They tried to pressure me into pausing the divorce proceedings. They wanted me to move back in, pay for her prenatal care, and prepare to be a father, but the math didn't add up. I pulled out a calendar and tracked the timeline. During the estimated window of conception, Sarah and I had been intimate exactly once, a cold, distant night where I had tried to reconnect with her right before I found the receipts. Meanwhile, she had spent 3 consecutive days at a lake house with Richard during that exact same week. I called Sarah back and kept my voice completely flat. "If the baby is mine, I will step up. I will pay child support. I will be active in its life, and I will be a father. But I am not signing a birth certificate or paying a single dollar until we get a court-ordered DNA paternity test after the birth." The reaction was immediate and explosive. She screamed at me through the phone, calling me a monster. She accused me of trying to humiliate her, of using an innocent, unborn baby to punish her for her mistakes, and of lacking basic trust. "How could you be so cruel?" she shrieked. "You're trying to strip away the one good thing left out of this nightmare." She refused for weeks, but I held my ground firmly. No DNA test, no involvement, no money. My lawyer made sure it was formally documented in our divorce proceedings that paternity was contested. Realizing she had no legal leverage to force my hand into financial liability without proof, she reluctantly agreed to submit to paternity testing as soon as the child was born. The next 7 months were a fever dream. I went through the finalization of our divorce while Sarah's pregnancy progressed. Every time I saw a picture of her posted by a mutual acquaintance on social media, showing off her growing baby bump at baby showers hosted by her family, my stomach turned. Her family continued to drop subtle hints, leaving voicemails about how a father should be present at the ultrasounds, but I blocked their numbers one by one. I remained completely isolated from her life, waiting on the clock. In early spring, she gave birth to a baby boy. 2 weeks after the delivery, a lab technician drew samples for a DNA paternity test. The waiting period was the longest 10 days of my life. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. Part of me was terrified that the test would come back positive, trapping me in a lifelong link with a woman who had shattered my trust. Another part of me was terrified of the unknown. Then, the official letter arrived in my mailbox. A thick white envelope with certified legal tracking. I sat at my kitchen counter, tore open the seal, and flipped directly to the bottom page. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. The tested male is excluded as the biological father of the child. I wasn't the father. A second sheet attached to the court documents identified the confirmed biological match through the court registry, where Richard had been forced to submit a sample under subpoena. Richard was the father. Sitting in that quiet apartment, looking at those black and white numbers, I felt a weight lift off my chest so violently it almost took my breath away. The fantasy they had constructed, the narrative Sarah had spun to her family that I was a bitter ex-husband abandoning his child, eroded in a single second. The fallout was catastrophic, and it hit like a freight train. Armed with the paternity results, my divorce lawyer submitted the findings to the court, officially severing all legal responsibilities or claims. But it didn't stop there. Richard's wife of 20 years found out about the paternity test during our court filings. She hired the most ruthless divorce attorney in the city, filed for divorce on grounds of adultery, and took him to the cleaners. She got the house, the vacation property, and a massive chunk of his retirement account. To make matters worse for Richard, his wife didn't keep quiet. She took the corporate expense reports, the hotel receipts, the cabin bookings, the dinner tabs, and handed them directly to the company's corporate board of ethics and HR department. An internal investigation was launched immediately. It uncovered that Richard hadn't just used company funds for Sarah, he had been engaging in a pattern of inappropriate relationships with junior female staff members and misusing corporate expense accounts for years. He was fired for cause, no severance, no golden parachute. His professional reputation in the logistics industry was utterly incinerated. While their world collapsed into public ruin, I took a very different path. I decided that sitting around feeling sorry for myself was a luxury I couldn't afford. The day the divorce was finalized and the paternity results were logged, I made a deal with myself. I was going to rebuild my life from scratch, brick by brick, until I didn't recognize the person I used to be. I started hitting the gym 5 days a week. At first, it was just a way to burn off the white-hot rage and anxiety that kept me awake at 3 a.m. But within 6 months, the physical transformation was undeniable. I lost 20 pounds of stress weight, put on lean muscle, and felt stronger than I had in my early 20s. Professionally, I poured every ounce of my energy into my work. With my ex-boss Richard out of the picture and his department in total disarray, the company was desperately searching for leadership. I didn't just step up, I crushed it. I stayed late, took on complex supply chain restructuring projects, and earned 2 advanced project management certifications over the weekend. 8 months after the divorce, a competing logistics firm reached out to me on LinkedIn. They had seen the restructuring work I did and wanted me to head their regional operations division. I took the interview, nailed it, and landed the offer. I packed up my stuff, moved to a higher-end condo downtown, and nearly doubled my previous income within a single year. For the first time in 5 years, I was financially thriving, physically fit, and completely free. A few months ago, out of nowhere, an unknown number called my phone. I didn't answer. A minute later, a text popped up. It was Sarah. She sent a long, rambling block of text. She told me she had been thinking about us constantly. She said that going through childbirth, being a mother, and hitting rock bottom had changed her perspective on life. She claimed she had made the biggest mistake of her life by letting me go, that she missed the man I was, and asked if we could meet up for coffee just to talk things through and find closure. The reality of her situation had caught up with her. My former boss, Richard, had vanished into thin air the moment court-ordered child support proceedings were initiated. Unemployed, bankrupt from his own divorce, and facing a garnishment of any future wages, he was completely out of the picture, offering zero financial or emotional help. Sarah was stuck living back in her childhood bedroom with her parents, working an entry-level administrative job, raising a newborn child completely alone, and carrying the overwhelming weight of her own choices. I stared at her text message on my phone screen for a long time. A year ago, a text like that would have sent me into a tailspin. It would have triggered anger, pain, or a desperate desire for an apology. But looking at it now in my quiet condo, surrounded by a life I built with my own hands, I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no hatred, no pity, just total indifference. I didn't argue. I didn't send a long rant about how she ruined our marriage or how she tried to trap me into raising another man's baby. I simply typed 8 words back. The DNA test answered more than one question. I hit send, immediately blocked her number, and deleted the thread. Last I heard through a mutual contact, she's still living with her parents, struggling to make ends meet and trying to navigate life as a single mother while Richard fights child support payments in court from whatever odd jobs he can find. Meanwhile, I'm sitting on my balcony on a Friday evening, drinking a quiet glass of whiskey, looking at the city skyline, and planning a 2-week vacation to Europe next month. I never imagined that losing my marriage, losing my house, and watching my life shatter into 1,000 pieces would end up being the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to wake up, pull myself out of a toxic environment, and build a reality that is 10 times better than the one I settled for. People ask me if I feel bad for her or if I think I'm being cruel for taking satisfaction in how things turned out. Honestly, am I crazy for being glad about her struggle? I don't go out of my way to hurt her, and I don't actively wish harm on anyone, but I'd be a liar if I said I didn't feel a deep sense of peace knowing that karma came back to collect every single debt she owed.